Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, and welcome to tonight's Planning Committee. My name is Neil Sanders. I'm chair of the committee, and if I could just make a few introductions before we get going. So the people sat in front of me with their backs to you, unfortunately, are elected members who will be deliberating on the applications in front of us tonight. To my left, I have planning officers and the principal solicitor for the meeting. To my right, I have Councillor David Pidwell, who is the vice chair of the committee, and I have Ms Johnson, who will be delivering a report later in the meeting, and Ms Colborne, who is the committee clerk. So, could I just ask that all mobile phones are please switched to silent? There's no planned test of the fire alarm system during this meeting, so if the alarm does sound, please exit the building quickly and safely via the main routes where you entered the building. If this route is unavailable, please use the exits marked in this room. Once outside the building, please assemble in the market square. This is the emergency assembly point, and please do not re-enter the building until the committee clerk has given the authorisation to do so. So this meeting is being recorded by the council and will be uploaded to the council's YouTube channel and website following the meeting. Members of the public or press may also photograph, audio record or film live for subsequent broadcast. At the start of the meeting, the chair will make an announcement to confirm that all or part of the meeting may be photographed, audio recorded or filmed. The layout of the venue means that the council cannot guarantee a seat location that is outside the range of any camera, broadcasting or recording equipment. Therefore, by entering the meeting room and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed, photographed or recorded, and to the use of these images and sound recordings through the media and/or public and other commercial outlets. If you have any queries regarding this, please contact the Democratic Services Officer at the meeting. Note that if you are intending to photograph, audio record or film this meeting, you should 1. Not film the public gallery, respect requests from other members of the public to cease recording when they speak, for example when they are presenting a deputation or petition or asking a question, and 3. Be mindful of the common law duty of confidentiality. You could place yourself at risk of being sued by another private individual if you disclose confidential personal information about such persons in meetings. So, is there any member who does not wish to be filmed? If so, could they please indicate? Thank you very much. Could I just remind members of the public that we need good order to get through the business of the meeting, and only those members of the public who have previously registered to speak are permitted to do so. Please note that this meeting must finish no later than 9 p.m. unless we pass a resolution during the meeting to agree a 30-minute extension. Okay, so moving on to the agenda. Agenda item number 1, apologies. Are there any apologies?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies received from Councillors Charlesworth, Oxby and Shaw.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is to receive declarations of interest by members and officers. Are there any declarations of interest by members? No, thank you. Are there any declarations of interest by officers? No, thank you. Agenda item number 3 is the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on the 17th of June 2026. These are on pages 5 and 8 of your agenda. Are there any comments or observations on these? If that's the case, could I ask to someone please move to accept these minutes? Thank you, Councillor Challoner. Councillor Fielding is seconded. Could I just have a quick show of hands, please? Thank you. So agenda item number 4 is minutes of the Planning Consultation Group meeting held on the 8th of June, the 22nd of June 2026. These are on pages 9 to 12 of your agenda, and these minutes are just to note. Agenda item number 5 is the outstanding minutes list on pages 13 and 14 of your agenda. There is one outstanding item on the outstanding minutes list, but they will be coming to not the next meeting, but the meeting afterwards, September meeting. I think we said 3 months, which I think is right. Okay, so agenda item number 6 is reports of the Head of Planning and Place. To note, the public interest test, Abby Marwood, Head of Planning and Place, has determined that all items on the agenda are not confidential. So, we move on to then agenda item number 6A, which is planning application 24-00565 FUL, which is land adjoining Grove Road in Retford. This is on pages 15 to 54 of your agenda. And just for members' memory, this was referred, not at the last meeting, but the meeting before. Deferred, not referred, deferred. Okay, thank you. So, could I ask the officer to please outline the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. As Chair just mentioned, this application is being presented to Planning Committee tonight due to the application being deferred for further information on the 20th of May. The original committee report is appended to the update in front of you. We're only considering the reasons for deferral. The rest of the matters were found okay or not in dispute. The application was deferred in order to seek additional information on the following points: viability, which was to get an opinion from a quantity surveyor; flooding and drainage, formal comments required from local lead flood authority; and highways, formal comments required from the Highways Authority. In terms of the viability, Gleeds were appointed to assess the viability assessment further, and they provided us with the abnormal construction cost assessment, including supporting order of cost estimate and commentary on variances to the applicant's assessment. In short, it concluded that Keepmoat have underestimated their overall building cost by circa 1.7 million, which would support HEB's finding. That was the independent viability assessor who originally assessed that the proposal would be unviable if this was subject to planning obligations. In terms of the flooding and drainage, the local lead flood authority reviewed the application on the 26th of June and raised no objections subject to conditions. Officers concur with this approach and shall secure the relevant conditions. Again, they're included in this updated note. And finally, moving on to highways, County Council Highways submitted comments on the 1st of July, stating that any favourable planning consent should be subject to highway-related planning conditions. Again, have been included in the relevant section of my planning committee note. However, it is considered that some of the conditions are unnecessary in line with the officer's original committee report. Where appropriate, the relevant conditions shall be secured.
Thank you. So we move on to speakers. I have one speaker registered to speak on this application, and that's Mr. Richard Holiday. Sorry, I pronounced your name wrong. Is he? Holiday. Good evening and welcome to committee. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Have you managed to log into the mic system okay? Yep.
I believe so.
Yeah. So I'll turn my mic off and we'll time and we'll let you know when 30 seconds is left, but in your own time.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members, and thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. Members have also been reminded that the scheme for 80 homes was deferred from the May committee. At that meeting, officers confirmed that although the proposal departs from the site allocation requirements, it complies with relevant local and national planning policy and represents sustainable development. The delivery of 19 additional homes beyond the site allocation carries significant weight in the planning balance. This benefit, together with the economic investment during construction and a substantial biodiversity gain, outweighs the identified policy conflict. Officers therefore recommended approval. That position remains unchanged. Since the committee meeting in May, the three reasons for deferral have been addressed. The first reason being viability. The Council's viability consultant has completed an assessment of the abnormal construction costs, which confirms that the development would be unviable if the full package of planning obligations were applied. The second reason relates to flood risk and drainage. And to that end, the lead local flood authority has reviewed the application and confirms that it raises no objection to the development, subject to conditions. The third reason for deferral related to highways, and the Council's Highways Department have reviewed the proposal and they've recommended approval, again subject to conditions. There are therefore no outstanding objections from statutory consultees. Keepmoat Homes has a long-standing commitment to delivering high-quality, attainable homes for people who are often priced out of the housing market. Their focus is on first-time buyers, young families, key workers, and those seeking to move from private rental into home ownership. Through well-designed, energy-efficient homes at accessible price points, they can help address local housing need and affordability challenges. The scheme will deliver 80 new homes, thereby making a valuable contribution towards local housing needs, economic investment and biodiversity net gain. In light of the continued officer support, the absence of any technical objections and the significant benefits that the scheme will deliver, we respectfully ask members to support the officer recommendation and approve the application. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I will now open up the debate. Are there any comments or observations on this report? Councillor Pash.
Yeah, just an observation. I mean, clearly the site has now been deemed as unviable to introduce any affordable homes, which is disappointing. And I really find it remarkable that an experienced national builder such as Keepmoat can get its calculations so wrong in the first instance, which and then go to an independent assessor, if you like, and now has deemed the situation, the development, unviable to deliver affordable homes. It's just an observation and just a disappointment that a national builder can get its calculations so significantly incorrect at early stages. So there's just an observation, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Brand, did you indicate? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. The gentleman has just told us that these homes are aimed at first-time buyers, etc., etc. On the documents we've been supplied with, I can't see a single patch of green space. If you've got first-time buyers, you can bet that there are some children that might like play and recreation areas. Now, we know that the government's recommendations for green space with easy access to outdoor areas has only just come out, but it would seem sensible to me, with that number of houses, with that demographic, that there should be some green spaces. That's my observation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brand. Are there any more comments? Councillor Naylor.
Thank you, Chair. It's more of an observation, really. I believe in the local plan, this site was allocated for about 60 dwellings. Well, 80 seems to me quite a bit more than that.
Yeah, just an observation, Chair. It is a fairly busy road from that crossing. In particular, I'm aware of highways issues just further up the lane there towards Rampton. Has been a bit of an accident hotspot. I just wonder if there was any highways issues that have been identified by highways along there. It is a very busy road. Thank you.
Thank you. Have officers got any reply to that question?
Yeah, I'd just like to add that Highways have issued a new set of comments received by myself on the 1st of July stating that there's no highways issues now subject to those planning conditions. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any further Councillor Pidwell?
Thank you, Chair. I just want to come back to what Councillor Pashley was saying about the lack of affordable housing. I mean, it's just not the affordable housing that is missing. It's, as I understand it, its contribution to the NHS and to the local education authority, and maybe other contributions, although I'm not quite sure how long the list is. And we're being asked to approve this. We know there's going to be some pressure on public services. We know how desperate people are for housing in this area. And we're sort of just giving away a site to a developer who legitimately can't develop it and meet the social obligations. And I feel very unhappy at that. I have to say, I don't think I can vote against it because I'm not quite sure what policy would support my position. But unless anyone convinces me otherwise, I'm tempted to abstain. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any more observations or questions from colleagues? If not, I have a couple, if you may. I'm not sure, and I've not seen it in the pack, so forgive me if it's in there and I've not read it, but have there been any attempts to find any grant funding from people like Homes England or seeking of government grants towards securing the affordable housing offer? And would that be something that we could condition to ask the developer to do going forward?
I'll jump in on this one, Chair. Homes England grant funding essentially falls outside of what we're able to secure by obligation. It's often known as additionality funding, and it's something potentially for the applicant to look at with Homes England, but it's not something that we can insist on.
Okay, thank you for that. Secondly, what I'd like to do is draw people's attention to policy ST56, which is provision of delivery of infrastructure. It's policy FT56 in the local plan. This talks about the council will consider use of a review mechanism in a 106 agreement to secure planning applications in the following circumstances. A, for an approved scheme with a non-policy compliant offer. B, for phased larger scheme developments, and C, for developments that have abnormal costs. Now, from what I can see, the review clause is about monitoring to see if market conditions improve or house prices rise. And I do know that other councils have used this as a condition or such. So my observation proposal would be that we put a review mechanism in place for this development. Could I just have officers' thoughts on that?
The immediate thought that springs to mind, Chair, is that there is no 106 agreement for this application if it were to be approved, because we're not securing any obligations. Now, it may be that we could potentially ask the question of the applicant. They are here. That's obviously at your discretion, Chair. but I'm not sure we'd be able to secure it by itself as a 106 agreement because we're not securing any obligations.
Thank you. My view would be that initially we did ask for contributions because they were in the pack of the original plan. Now, I do understand that the viability assessment does suggest, well, not suggest, it says that it would be unviable to pay the obligations now. But as we all know, markets change, situations change, and I say it's actually a policy within our local plan. And again, it's policy ST56. And with research, other councils have done this. So this is just purely my opinion. I don't know whether colleagues want to give their opinion on this, but I don't feel that this is an unreasonable condition to attach. I just feel that it's in the local plan. So I don't think it's, if something's in the local plan, I don't think it's unreasonable for the council to ask for that.
I agree, Chair, but I think as part of the viability process, we would be looking at whether or not it's viable to build out. A build out for a site this size might be sort of 5-10 years up to worst case scenario, so things might change, but I can't see how we would be able to secure any uplift clauses when we're not asking for anything to begin with. That's my issue here. I'm not really sure if there's a legal way we could do it.
Not wishing to be pedantic, but there was a certain amount of money that was in the initial pack, and I believe, off the top of my head, it was £98,000 for NHS provision. And I'm sure I'm right in that. I haven't got my paperwork open, and I do apologise for that. But I share councillors' unease with the fact that we have a site that's in the local plan, which is site HS11. You've got policy 23, which again is in the local plan, which details items that would mitigate the development. I understand that the viability assessment is saying that at the moment the developer cannot deliver those, and I accept that. But what I'm asking for, or what I'm suggesting we put in, is a review mechanism that reviews the development going forward, and if the position changes, then the developer pays some contribution towards what was initially asked for. Now, again, the policy is ST56. It's in our local plan. So, again, I don't think it's unreasonable for us to put in a review mechanism. I'm not asking the developer to pay any contributions. If the site remains unviable, the site remains unviable. But if financial conditions change, if house prices rise or market conditions improve, and the site delivers more than it does at the moment, I don't think it's unreasonable that we ask for some money to actually go towards mitigating the items that were identified in the local plan under site SH11 policy 23.
Can I request 5-minute adjournment, Chair, so I can just have a chat with the lawyers and the policy manager?
I'm quite happy for that, yes. Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have a 5-minute adjournment just to allow officers to have a chat about what I'm asking them. So we'll be back at 7 o'clock. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, could you just retake your seats, please? It's all right, I'll give you a couple of minutes just to get back. Okay. So, yes, excuse me. Mr. Riggs, have you got an answer for me, please?
Yes, thanks, Chair. So I've just had a chat with my colleagues and the applicant, and they are in principle content to enter into an agreement for a clawback provision. That would mean that we would need to amend the recommendation to grant subject to conditions plus 106 agreement, with final wordings being delegated back to the head of service.
Okay, thank you. Are colleagues content with that? Is there any? Yeah? Okay, thank you. Right, so thank you, everybody, for your patience with that. So, are there any further questions or comments on this application? No? Oh, Councillor Chalmers.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you for putting forward that proposal on the condition, and thank you, Richard, and the planning officers for going and discussing it. It's a very important part that you've raised, Chair, and that hopefully it is fully supported. And because the main thing is, this council did for many, many years put a local plan together. And part of that local plan, like you pointed out, was this actual area was supposed to have, like Councillor Naylor said, 61 properties allocated for development. The allocation come back that they want 80. So that also counteracts what Councillor Brand has been saying about green space, because that green space has been took up by those other 19 dwellings. So the top and bottom of this is the applicant has got an extra 19 dwellings. They went away and come back, and this viable study or whatever says, oh, sorry, we got our sums wrong, we were 1.7 million underestimated. Well, you've got that money back with your 19 dwellings. And then, with the 19 dwellings, like you've already stated, that markets change, things can happen, so putting a condition in like what you've asked for is not asking for a great amount, because if the markets were to rise by 5% over the 80 dwellings, that's 400% increase, of which would be coming in along the lines. But at the end of the day, for a developer to come and sort of like offer nothing, I think that that proposal is a fair proposal, Chair, and it's down to how markets are affected. So I fully support the condition that you have asked for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Colleagues, are there any further comments, questions or observations on this application? So, if that is the case, then we move on to the recommendation, which is to grant planning permission subject to conditions and 106 provision. Have I got that right?
Final wording being delegated.
Yeah, and the final wording being delegated to Head of Planning and Place. I'll get that right. So, could I ask all those in favour to please show? Any against? Any abstentions? So that planning application passes. Thank you. So we move on then to agenda item number 6B. Which is a planning application 2400411 FUL, which is land south east of Main Street in Stirrup. This is on pages 55 to 70 in your agenda. Could I ask the officer to please outline the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the erection of 9 dwellings and garages, including the construction of 1 new access on land south-east of Main Street in Stirrup. The application has no local or statutory objections. It just is brought forward to committee because it has a sustained parish council objection from Stirrup with all quotes and from 17 neighbours with regards to overdevelopment, traffic during construction, potential overbearing on adjacent dwellings, including 5 to 6 Stirrup Court, and the development not being in keeping with the local vernacular or local character. I think we have gone to site this afternoon, but I've attached some photos of the site and of the adjacent dwellings and blank facade on Main Street, just because the applicant is proposing a brick wall 1.8 meters high on their side of the road. The Highways Authority has raised no objections to the access point or potential parking. There is a potential consideration of visitor parking not being sufficient and the risk of off-site parking, but it is my view, in accordance with the Nottinghamshire Design Guide, the adopted design guide for parking standards, that the visitor parking is sufficient and any potential overspill will need to be managed by a traffic regulation order from the local Highways Authority. It's not for us as the District Council. And for the avoidance of doubt, it is 3 3-beds, 3 4-beds, and 3 5-beds. I'm happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. So moving on to speakers, I have one speaker registered for this application, and that's Mr. Pettit.
Okay.
Welcome, Mr. Pettit.
Thank you.
You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and we'll let you know when there's 30 seconds left.
Thank you.
So, in your own time.
Right. Can I first thank the committee and the councillors for the opportunity to speak for the hamlet of Stirrup? Having spoken with the majority of residents on Main Street and reviewed the online comments submitted, it is clear there is significant opposition and concern of residents over the proposed development. The key concern is the number of properties being crammed into a small half-hectare greenfield site. This only benefits the developer, not the residents of the village or the prospective residents. Many of the residents do feel the style of the proposed properties is not in keeping with the street and will be detrimental to the current openness and character of the village. The plan shows the back rows of houses is further inset into the rural landscape than any other houses on that side of the road. This is not in keeping with the village layout. The existing greenfield, together with the ditch at the front running parallel along Main Street, absorbs rainfall, helping to prevent local flooding of the road and the properties opposite. During persistent and heavy rainfall, these properties can still experience a degree of flooding. It is unclear to what degree replacing the field with hard surface will increase the risk of flooding. If the site is to be excavated, it is not clear what will be the consequence to the adjacent properties east and west of the plot. If it is not to be excavated, the elevation of the properties at the rear of the plot will be much higher than the adjacent properties, clearly affecting privacy. There is no indication of additional hedging or fencing to alleviate this. There are significant concerns on the increase of traffic that would result from the development on an already busy through road. There is a proposal for a 2-metre wide footpath to run along the front of the development, extending to Fairview Cottage on the east. Much of the green verge along the plot is at most 1 metre wide, so as such a footpath would need to replace or fill in a significant portion of the ditch. It's unclear what will happen with respect to the 2 telegraph poles that are
30
on
seconds.
this route. Main Street residents respectfully ask you to consider our objections in full and reject this proposed development. Thank you for your time and allowing me to put our objections forward.
Thank you. So, at this point, again, I'll open up the debate to the floor. Are there any observations or comments on this report? Councillor Brand.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. When I Googled this site, it looked as if there were some footpaths across it. Are they registered footpaths or are they informal footpaths?
There are no public rights-of-way in and or around the sites. They're just informal.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pashley.
Thank you, Chair. Just a point that that Mr. Pettit raised around the density of the site. Is the density of the site, I ask officers this one, please, is the density of the site in line with other developments within the village?
Let me just run a quick calculation on my phone while I answer the second part of the question. Stirrup Court, which is right adjacent to the site, includes barn conversions and new development, and the scale and density of that development is quite similar to the one proposed here. In terms of the density of this particular site, it's about 17.6 dwellings per hectare, which is at the lower end because they are larger dwellings.
Okay. Colleagues, any further Councillor Richardson.
Thank you, Chair. From a topo point of view, could you give me an indication as to how much soil is going to be excavated and what the streetscape would look like from the road? Just picking up on the comments that we've had earlier, please.
Absolutely. My understanding is there's going to be limited excavation only to allow developments to be built and the roads to be levelled and put in place, which means that from the street it will be, as we've observed today, sloping upwards. It will be partially screened by the wall and boundary vegetation, but the details of those have not been submitted and will be secured by condition.
Just picking up on that point as well, therefore, so the conditions in terms of boundary, particularly if you look at the dwellings 1, 2, 3, 4, they're likely to be elevated and therefore overlook properties to the east and the west of the site. So therefore, would be sufficient screening on the east and west of the elevations to ensure the privacy of properties adjacent to the development on both sides.
This plan does not include a north arrow, so it might be slightly confusing. It's actually the opposite way around. But plot 1 is closest to the properties on the east and has a blank facade on that side. So hopefully there should be no assessed potential risk of overlooking. Plots 4 to 6, 4 to 5 overlook a field. 6 potentially can overlook Fairview Cottage, but there's considered to be sufficient separation and a boundary fence between them. So there should be no overlooking or overbearing impacts.
Okay. Any further comments or observations, colleagues, on this particular application? No. Okay. So, if that's the case, then we move on to the recommendation. And the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to conditions. This is on pages 63 to 68 of your agenda. Could I ask all those in favour to please show? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's unanimous. And there's nobody against, nobody abstaining. Yeah, unanimous, yes. Okay, thank you. So that application has passed. So we move on to agenda item number 6C, which is planning application 25-01400 FUL, which is Dalston House, Clark Lane in Tuxford. This is at pages 71 to 80 of your agenda. Could I please ask the officer to outline the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. This development is for the change of use from a Class 3 residential property to a Class 2 residential institution, more specifically a children's home at Dalston House, Clark Lane, Tuxford. The application will accommodate up to 3 children aged between 7 and 17, up to and including the point that they reach 18 years old, or if their circumstances change. The application is brought forward to committee because of objections from the Tuxford Town Council and from 26 residents on the basis of Tuxford lacking sufficient services and facilities, the potential impact on the residential area and the residential character, the potential overlooking and loss of privacy, increase of traffic, and any adverse impact on the character of Dalston House as a non-designated heritage assets. For the most part, I think I need to confirm that the conservation officer has raised no objections or concerns, since most of the changes, all of the changes proposed are internal to the building. There will be no impact or changes to the access arrangements, bin collection arrangements, or to the trees currently on site, which are subject to a tree protection order. Protection measures will also be secured by the condition for that purpose. Highways have raised no objections to the access arrangements remaining as they are. And the increase of traffic is considered to be an unlikely situation because it would operate as a typical 5-6 bed dwelling. I think I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you. So again, we move on to speakers, and I have one speaker registered, and that is Gillian Cuppett. Welcome to Planning Committee. As with the other speakers beforehand, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and we will let you know when there's 30 seconds left. Okay. So, when you're ready.
Okay, I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to speak tonight. I'm reading this on behalf of Samantha and Daniel Cupid of 4 Peel Avenue, which is directly opposite Dalston House. As a nurse with almost 20 years' experience working in accident and emergency, I have had many opportunities to work with vulnerable children, young people and their carers. Based on that experience, I have serious concerns about the suitability of this location. The property is within easy walking distance of the A1, with no physical barriers preventing a child from accessing the highway. This presents a significant safety risk to both the children and road users, particularly if a child were to abscond. I would also ask whether public funding would be required to cover the cost of any A1 closures resulting from such incidents, and what impact this could have on residents through increased traffic disruption. I also question why this home is being relocated from Red Mile if the children are already settled there. I understand there are alternative properties available within that area which could meet the same requirements. Information available publicly suggests the provider has faced concerns from local residents in Red Mile, and I believe it is reasonable for the committee to consider whether there are lessons to be learned before approving another location. I am also concerned about the applicant's accuracy and accountability. We have asked why a deceased person was referenced in the statement of interest, but have received no explanation. We have highlighted a number of inaccuracies within the application, yet the responses have themselves contained further inaccuracies. For example, the applicant accepted it was wrong to describe the property as detached, but then stated it is attached only at the kitchen. This is plainly inconsistent with what can be seen from the road. While this may appear to be a small point, it raises wider concerns about the reliability of the information being presented to the committee. Finally, I ask the committee to consider the precedence this decision sets. If an application containing repeated inaccuracy is approved, what message does that send about the standards expected of applicants? I believe this proposal risks creating ongoing issues for Bassetlaw District Council and neighbouring residents for years to come.
30 seconds.
I therefore respectfully ask the committee to refuse this application. I personally have submitted a formal objection to this planning application and wholeheartedly concur with everything that has just been presented. The concerns raised are well-founded, evidence-based and clearly demonstrate why this application should be refused. Thank you for letting me speak to the meeting.
Thank you. So, again, I'll open up the debate to the floor. Councillor Ashley.
Thank you, Chair. We've been on the site visit today, and clearly there is an adjoining property to this property that's been identified for the application. And interestingly, that the plans that we've shown on the screen there don't show the adjoining property, which, you know, in isolation would be a different proposition. But it isn't. It's actually adjoined to another property. And if I was to put myself in that neighbouring property's shoes, I would have some significant concerns as to what is likely to be granted in my next door neighbour's property that's joined to mine by a party wall, probably. So I think it's disappointing that we see that the internal floor plans there, whilst internal, I appreciate, don't show the adjoining property attached. Now that's an observation, as I say, just from my point of view. I would be rather disappointed as the neighbour that these proposals will be going forward without showing my property as part of the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Could I just ask officers, have we actually got a picture of the property, or could we pull it up on Google Earth? Is that something we could do?
These are pictures of the side of the property. Let me see if I can get a cursor up.
Yeah.
No, I can't get a cursor up. To the right of the darker red tone is the actual front of the property. And the adjoined semi-detached property is not shown in the picture, but is on the other side of that pink-toned part of the building. I will say, if I may, the floor plans, yes, they do not show that the property is semi-detached, but there are no changes proposed along the party wall. So the top 2 bedrooms and bathroom area, those remain where they are. Most of the changes are on the separated part of the first floor, which again, there will be concerns potentially for the adjoining resident, but nothing on their party wall kind of boundary.
Chair, just coming back on that, also what we see is the photograph there doesn't actually show the adjoining property. The property that's showing the light pink, if you like, is part of the property that we're discussing. So the adjoining property isn't actually shown on the site photos. And, you know, one would ask, why has that been omitted? As a fair comment, really. But again, just an observation. I'm putting myself in the individual's shoes that's actually adjoined to the main property.
Thank you, Councillor. Are there any other comments? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you very much, Chair. Look, let's be quite clear. This is not really a residential property in the sense if approval was given, it would be a commercial property because it's run for commercial reasons. Could I just have some assurance that if permission was granted, there would be some sort of planning restriction against any further growth in numbers of this care facility? Would that be something that would be considered?
It's not something that's currently attached, but it can be attached to limit the number of occupants and or on-site staff at all times. That is something that could be readily added.
And the reason I ask that, Chair, if I just may, is my fear is that consent would be granted and pretty quickly there would be some expansion. That is my fear, and I'm considering what impact that would have on residents without this restriction or condition in place. So that's my point, Chair. Thank you.
No, thank you. Would that be considered as a fair and reasonable condition? Yeah. So yeah. So that is something that we can certainly add. I just wondered why I'd got a picture of the seaside popped up there. I never know. That's all right. It just caught me in the eye when it flashed up. Yes, that is something that we can add as a condition. Colleagues, are we, whilst we're talking about that, are we okay with that condition being added? Yeah? Lovely, thank you. Everybody seems to be nodding. Are there any further questions or comments on this application? No? Okay, thank you. So if that's the case, then we'll move on to the recommendation. And the recommendation is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions and the conditions that we've just added. So could all those in favour please show? All against? Any abstentions? So that application has passed. Thank you. So we move on to agenda item number 7, which is renewal and low carbon energy proposals position statement, July 2026. This is on pages 81 to 114 of your agenda. And could I ask Ms Johnson to please present the report, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So this report is in response to a council motion from December of last year, which was relating to renewable energy, NSIPs and the review of local plan evidence. The position statement is designed to provide a district-wide update on the number, location and extent of planning proposals that the council determine in accordance with the Bassetlaw local plan, and also gives an officer view about the effectiveness of the local plan in their consideration. So the report sets out what it does include and what it doesn't. So basically NSIPs are excluded because they're determined by a planning inspector on behalf of the Secretary of State. And it also excludes permitted development as well because they're dealt with through a separate route. The report very much focuses on commercial scale renewable and low carbon proposals as well. So really there are 25 proposals in the scope of the report, and in terms of, I suppose the report's effectively split into 2 parts. The first bit gives the information on the numbers, the location, the extent, that kind of thing, and we've summarised that in the report for you. And then the second part of the report looks in a bit more detail about the policy interpretation and policy use, focusing on the policies that were listed in the motion. I think it's probably worth just mentioning at this point the way that national policy expects local plans to work. So local plans are designed to work with the NPPF national policy. The local plan has to be consistent with national policy to be adopted and found sound. It also has to work with planning practice guidance. So we're asked not to repeat the content of the NPPF or planning practice guidance. It's important that they all work together. Planning practice guidance is actually a really useful tool. It does give a lot of additional guidance about, particularly around things like cumulative impact. It gives some guidance around battery energy storage and that kind of thing. And so we're not really expected to repeat that within the local plan because national guidance deals with that for us. And we also do look at other legislation and regulations as well, which is where some of the sort of safety implications get covered. They get covered by separate legislation. And the way that the local plan works is that, particularly say the renewable energy policy, so that's ST49, it has a lot of what I would call policy hooks in there. So it's like a criteria that then directs you to another part of the local plan. So for example, we have a policy hook or a criteria that's about landscape character, but then we have a separate policy that goes into a little bit more detail about landscape character and asks applicants to look at the landscape character assessment for the district. So that's where that's what they have to use to be able to put their evidence together. So we don't need to repeat landscape character in every policy. We have one policy that covers landscape in its entirety. We also are asked to make sure that policies are flexible in their approach. They have to be able to adapt to changing circumstances over the plan period. Planning inspectors don't like policies to be too prescriptive. If we try to be too prescriptive, they do ask us to change the policies. So by having flexible policies, that means that we can use them in different circumstances. So as new technologies come forward, the general criteria that are within the policies can be used to make an assessment of the proposal, together with national policy, national guidance as well. So I think the report effectively summarises that we, as officers, our view is that the local plan is doing its job in that context. That said, we have made some recommendations within the position statement, but also at 3.42 in your report, around any future non-binding work. Some of this is ongoing, so we regularly monitor how well the local plan is working, and we publish an authority monitoring report with all of that information in it. We do have a part of our webpage that does provide updates quarterly about NSIPs and that sort of thing, which we'll keep taking forward. And I think the key thing for us at the moment is to make sure that we are keeping on top of the many changes that come out of government for planning, and to make sure that the local plan isn't in conflict with any of it, and if it is, what are we going to do about that? And as members hopefully are aware, Cabinet did approve in June that a local plan review should start, and as part of that process we will then look forward for the next plan period and what the local plan could look like and what renewable energy policies for the local plan could look like as well. So they're the recommendations that we are recommending, and then the final recommendation is that we will keep working with all of our partners like the East Midlands Mayoral Combined Authority and neighbouring authorities to look at in a little bit more detail what can be done, what should be done in the Trent Valley Supercluster area in terms of land use, and that's something that the Council's been working on with partners for a while, and that work will continue, and we'll be keeping members updated on that as decisions and as needed to be made.
Thank you very much. And can I just say thank you, Karen, for all the hard work you put into that report. Colleagues, are there any comments or observations on the report? Councillor Richardson.
Thank you for the work that you've put into this. I would absolutely urge this council to really begin to consider the cumulative impact of all of these developments that are going on in the Trent Valley Supercluster area. It is not just what's happening in the Trent Valley Supercluster, which is the 3 power stations. It's all of the planning applications and all of the NSIPs that are taking place outside of these areas. Personally, I have no issue with the development of the former power stations. I do have issue with the rapid rate of expansion that is going on, and cumulative impact does not appear to be a significant factor within the document that you put in there. So I've got a question for you, and the question is this. In the work that you have done, what is there to protect residents and to truly consider cumulative impact outside of the Trent Valley Supercluster area in that particular area? And it's an area that I know very well, and it's an area that I'm very passionate about, and I feel the document does in some way fall short. I will support it, but I do feel it falls short. So if you could answer the question, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, we do give a view on cumulative impact. The approach that we take to cumulative impact in the local plan is consistent with national policy. It does require that operational and consented proposals of the same nature are considered, which is what national policy asks us to do. The planning practice guidance gives more information about the level of detail that assessment should cover. So we are completely consistent with that. I suppose just to be clear as well, the Trent Valley Supercluster is obviously a particular part of the district, but we will be looking at, through the local plan, the whole district and the impact of renewables and what we should do next. So I wasn't suggesting that we treat the Trent Valley Supercluster any differently or in a different way to the rest of the district. The local plan will set the framework for the whole district. I think probably it's just worth pointing out as well, and this is one of the things that we did pick up on in the position statement, is the direction that planning inspectors are taking as well when cumulative impacts do come up in appeal situations, because we have to take that into account when we're designing policies, and certainly planning committee should when they're thinking about their decision making as well, is that inspectors are placing significant weight on the need for clean energy and renewable energy. Of the 31 appeals that we looked at, only 3 inspectors allowed. So, and we have to find a way to deal with that. So that's not to say that we won't be researching it and producing evidence to look at renewables in the future, but we are working within that context of what national policy and what planning inspectors are responding to. The other thing that we have to bear in mind as well when it comes to solar in particular is that they are a temporary use, and inspectors are placing a significant weight. I take the point, but inspectors do place weight on that it is not a permanent change in the landscape, and that a lot of the mitigation that goes with it, along things like landscaping, will remain after the solar is removed. So actually some of the mitigation is permanent, but the actual proposal isn't, and that, rightly or wrongly, is the way that planning inspectors are interpreting that particular part of the proposal. But we have to find a policy approach that can effectively manage that and not be conflicting with national policy. So it's something we are looking at, but obviously it's something that's an ongoing process for us at the moment.
I just apologise there for, the smile, but 40 years is hardly temporary, is it, Karen?
It is in the terms of that definition. It is considered to be temporary. It's not a permanent development.
So could I just ask the question again? What is there within that amended policy to protect and support residents from cumulative impact? What consideration at all is in there to support our residents?
So the policy asks that site-specific and cumulative impact looks at all of the points that are listed in the policy. That includes landscape and visual impact, impact on agricultural land, highways, heritage, the natural environment, green infrastructure, flood risk, pollution in all its forms. There is a considerable list in the policy, which obviously has been approved by a planning inspector on examination. So that is what we're asked to do. And as I say, the additionality, the detail of what that should include, the kind of assessments that developers are expected to produce when they make these kind of submissions is set out in planning practice guidance. In terms of, say, something like landscape, we have a very detailed landscape character assessment for the district, which is also referenced in the landscape character policy. So that directs developers to that, and they have to work their way through that. And there's various, the district is divided into different areas, different character zones, and there's different measures that have to be put in place depending on which part of the district you're in. And different policies will have different mitigations or different proposals that have to be met when the proposal comes in. So because proposals are happening not in just one part of the district, I can't really give you a definitive answer to that, but the policy does cover all the issues that it should cover, all the issues that we would be asking developers to take into consideration when they're putting an application together.
I look forward to taking part in the discussions on the local plan. I think I'll have this debate further. Thank you for the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Richardson. I look forward to the debate as well. Councillor Pidwell.
I mean, I do think we need a better word than temporary, don't we? there must be another word in the lexicon that more properly defines a 40-year period, which used to be a 30-year period, wasn't it, until fairly recently, I believe. A clue to what might help with clustering, look at the 3 appeals that were successful. That there might be some arguments there and some points there from the inspectors that might be pertinent to future applications along the Trent. And the third thing is, I mean, I agree the impact on some of the Trent side villages, but at the moment I'm persuaded that the 2 grid points, which attracts them in the first place, which makes them viable and attractive, is quite compelling. You know, I think we've got those 2 long-term infrastructure assets. We've got to make use of them, I feel, rather than letting them just go away to nothing now that the power stations have stopped producing, or most of the power stations.
Thank you. Councillor
One thing,
I'll let you.
I have no issue with what you've said, but what I will just like to focus on is that I have no issue with the development of this stuff within the 3 former power station sites. What I do object to, and I have a real issue with, is the massive expansion outside of those 3 power station sites. In the last local plan, all of the things that we are seeing now was not properly considered in that plan. So the updating of that plan is relatively urgent, and I see nothing in the document that you've proposed that provides any further evidence to support the expansion outside those power station sites. I do agree with you, Councillor Bidwell, on what you've said, but I do take issue with the rapid expansion outside of those 3 former power station sites. And until I see evidence to the contrary, that unfortunately will be my position.
Thank you. Councillor Brand.
Yeah, thank you. I've looked through this and I don't know if I've missed it somewhere, but is there somewhere that tells us which of these sites is an NSIP? Because our role is quite different if it's an NSIP to if it's a normal planning application.
So this report only includes the Town and Country Planning Act permissions that this council will determine. It excludes NSIPs, because NSIPs, as you quite rightly said, NSIPs are not determined by the planning authority. So this report only deals with the planning applications that would come before this type of committee.
Could I just add, I mean, for completeness, would it be possible to have somewhere in there a table of what the MSIPs are, in the same way as you've done those that have been through the planning process, just so that we get a full picture rather than part of the picture?
The reason we focused on the proposals that this council determines is because we were looking at the impact that the local plan could have, and because we're a consultee, the council is a consultee on NSIPs, and not the local planning authority. That's why we haven't included NSIPs within the report, because it would actually kind of muddy the waters a little bit, I think. I mean, we can provide a separate list of where the NSIPs are, but it wasn't appropriate that went into the position statement, because the position statement was only focusing on the proposals that the planning authority determines.
Yeah, I think it would help to give us a fuller, clearer picture, rather than just the ones that come through the council.
Thank you. Are there any further? Councillor Challoner.
Thanks, Chair. Well, it's obvious to me we're just too good at what we do in Nottinghamshire, which is produce energy. All these old power station sites are all ex-coal-fired. But the main thing which is still there, which they're upgrading now, which Karen knows about, is the national grid. But we're also now changing from, because we didn't invest in clean coal technology, which pits are still been open, but is now going for zero carbon emissions. And I know Hazel said it times many, we don't want Bassetlaw becoming glazed over. But they're getting away with it because they're using that word, what Councillor Pidwell said, temporary. It's only a temporary measure. 40 years, I bet all the things now, I bet none of us in here will see them when they turn them back around to what it's supposed to be, green field. But it's the infrastructure, and I can understand where Councillor Richardson's coming from, it's all like the knock-on effect, and it's had to be built into local plan. But sometimes, when we've objected to stuff, and we had one opposite Clumber Park Hotel or whatever, and that went to the inspectorate, who straight away, now we're not bothered about that impact there, it's energy, energy, energy. So we know the way that things are being forced. We all sit round here, we're no shop eggs. We're supposed to be jack of all trades, master of none, when you sit on planning and whatnot. And when you're a councillor, you get every problem that there is that's walking out there. But my question, Karen, is what's happening on this side at Trent, on the Nottinghamshire side, is the same happening on Lincolnshire side? And I would presume also there's other areas, because when you look, you're talking Trent Valley, you've got the Ouse Valley, where you've got Drax Power Station, Eggborough Power Station and Ferry Bridge all used to be. So are all these places, I know I'm going away from Bassetlaw now, but are all these places having the same impacts put on them that they've got to do this? I know Drax is a total different thing. They're burning wood pellets, which is causing more problems than enough. But when you look at all these areas, we, as a district, we lost all this coal industry, but we have adapted by putting, whether it's wind turbine and solar panel, we get them all the time. But we know that we are still a significant part of the energy policy for this country, but we don't want to be treated like idiots. And when they say it's temporary, let there be some proper reassurances, like Councillor Richardson said.
I think in terms, I can't really speak for the other councils, but I do understand that West Lindsey, they do have, I suppose, the same sort of interest in their land for renewable solar because of the proximity to the power stations in Bassetlaw. But I couldn't really speak to the other authorities at all.
Thank you. I'm slightly upset, Councillor Challoner, because I thought you were going to say that the sun always shines in Bassetlaw. Anyway, are there any further comments, questions, observations on this particular report? If not, then I shall move on to the recommendation. And the recommendations are set out on page 88 of your agenda. Could I ask all those in favour, please show. I think that's unanimous, isn't it? 1, 2, 3, yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you, colleagues. So, agenda item number 8 is appeal decisions received. So, these are planning appeal decisions received between the 3rd of June and the 1st of July. I'm sure you've read them all and have no questions to ask. Okay. Agenda item number 9, any other business which the Chair considers to be urgent. You'll be happy to know I have no any other business. Thank you very much, colleagues. Thank you for your contributions tonight. Safe journey home and enjoy the football.